Working the fourth step in SAA. In step 1, I admitted that I'm powerless over this destructive addiction, and in 2 and 3, I came to believe and made a decision about a higher power other than myself. In step 4, I take a courageous and honest look at my life. The best way to get started working step 4 is to read about it in SAA's basic text, Sex Addicts Anonymous, or the Green Book. I can access this online by searching for SAA Green Book online. Insights and guidance on the fourth step starts on page 31. Step 4 reads: Made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. My goal in step 4 is to identify and write down the negative thoughts, actions, and emotions that have contributed to my addiction. I do this using inventories. The most common inventories are resentments, fears, and harms done others. As I work step 4, I keep 3 things in mind. First, for this step to be useful, I must be honest with myself, otherwise, I am wasting my energy. Second, I have more success if I get in the habit of writing out a little every day, even if it's only for 10 minutes. And finally, working step 4 can stir up painful feelings inside me, so I stay in contact with my sponsor and others in the program on a regular basis. Working step 4 is about writing out or typing my personal inventories. The first time I worked through step 4, I wrote them out in a notebook. The second time I worked this step, I typed them out on a computer. It is a personal choice. What matters is that I get them out of my head and record them through writing or typing. The remainder of this video walks through each of the 3 inventories. Information on available fourth step worksheets is included at the end. On page 34 of the SAA Green Book, it says, resentment is one of the most stubborn obstacles to our spiritual growth. Resentment means holding on to old hurts, anger, and grudges. When I first worked this step, I thought I didn't have any resentments. Then my sponsor asked me, think about someone that you would be uncomfortable sitting next to right now. I ended up with dozens of people and establishments on my list. I learned that my resentments might not be reasonable or even fair, but that doesn't matter. What matters is that the resentment exists inside me, so I write it down. Writing or typing my resentment inventory starts with listing the people, institutions, or things I am resentful at. People could include parents, siblings, in-laws, coworkers, classmates, neighbors, random people I don't even know, myself, and others. Institutions could be religion, the government, the legal system, the media, political organizations, tech companies, and more. And things might include food, alcohol, my mobile phone, television, weather, or anything else. Once I have completed my list, I go back through and answer the following questions for each person, institution, and thing on my list. First, why am I resentful? What happened, triggered, or still triggers my anger or irritation? Next, how did I feel and maybe still feel? Then, I identify what was lost, taken, or threatened inside me. This could be my self-esteem, my pride, my finances, my career, my personal relationships, or anything else. Finally, and most importantly, what was my part? Was I selfish? Have I held on to this anger for too long? Have I been unreasonable or uncaring? When considering my part, it is important to remember that I may not have a part in all resentments. This is often true for things that happened to me when I was a child. Childhood trauma and resulting resentment can be very deep-seated, and I often did not have a part in it. However, I still write it down. Some recovering addicts get to the fourth step, see what is required, and ask, can I do it? If you get started, take the inventories little by little, and stay in contact with your sponsor and others in the program, the answer to that question is a resounding, yes you can. After working through my resentments inventory, I move on to fears. In my life, fear has been a thief because it steals from me. Fear is defined as distressing emotion aroused by impending danger, whether the threat is real or imagined. My fears do not have to even be real and yet can do massive damage to my well-being. Page 35 in the Green Book describes it this way. We can list the ways in which we have been handicapped by our fears, how fear motivated actions that we later regretted, how it prevented us from achieving the things we desired, or how the fear of intimacy and commitment contributed to our loneliness. It then continues. Many of us have found that fear was a pervasive influence throughout our lives, profoundly affecting our beliefs, our relationships, and our self-worth. Just as with the resentments inventory, I begin my fears inventory by making a list of the things I am afraid of. Examples of fears could include fear of dying, of rejection, of failure, of success, of loneliness, of authority, of poverty, of intimacy, or of change. These are just a few examples, and there is almost no end to what I can fear, and no fear is invalid. I then answer 2 questions for each fear on my list. Why am I afraid? And what part or parts of me does this fear affect? My self-esteem? My pride? My emotional security? My financial security or pocketbook? My ambitions? My personal relations? Or my sex relations? As an example of one entry in my fear inventory, I might answer the following. What is my fear? Rejection. Why am I afraid? Because I will then be alone and without love or anyone to care for me, and I will feel worthless. What parts of me does rejection impact? My self-esteem, my pride, and my emotional security. As I go through step 4, I really begin to see why this process is called working the 12 steps. I keep reminding myself that the work we are doing is well worth it. Keep going. The third inventory that I complete is to review the harms I have done. In my addiction, I hurt many people. This inventory is a chance to face those harms. There are some important things I keep in mind as I complete this inventory. First, in my addiction, I harmed others both through what I did and also by what I did not do. As I work the steps and grow in my recovery, I will learn that I matter and that what I do and what I fail to do matters. Second, I take responsibility for my part. Yes, others may have done things to me, but in this inventory I focus on my side of the street. Next, I look at the things I feel guilty or ashamed about. Things I have done or not done that I have wanted to keep secret. Now is the time for me to write those things down. Next, it is important that I remember to put myself on this list because, in my addiction, I did great damage to my sense of well-being, to relationships that are important to me, to my health, and to so many other parts of me. And finally, as I complete this inventory, I remember to show grace to myself and others in my life. Yes, I have done harm to others and to myself, however, I am working through this program towards recovery and hope. I remind myself of the promises waiting for those who work these steps, and I keep going. Next, I compile my harms inventory. As with the other inventories, I start by making a list. In this case, it is a list of people I have hurt. If I don't remember someone's name, I can describe them. For example, I might write, the guy in my 10th grade English class. Once I have an initial list, I start with the first name on the list. I write down how I hurt that person. If I hurt someone in different ways, I list each hurt separately. Next, I note the part or parts of my character that caused that harm. Examples of parts of my character that can cause harm include being controlling, dishonest, distant, entitled, frightened, greedy, inconsiderate, lacking self-discipline, being lustful, selfish, and willful. Finally, for each harm, I note what I could have done differently. For example, I might note that, instead of yelling at my son, I could have helped him and encouraged him. As I work this inventory, I stay in touch with my sponsor and others in the program. The harms inventory can be very emotional and cause me guilt and shame. I remember that this is not the purpose of the harms inventory and that getting these things out and eventually sharing them with my sponsor is a very important and powerful part of my recovery journey. I remind myself that I can complete Step 4 if I do a little each day and stay in contact with my sponsor and friends in the program. I remember that no amount of time will produce the perfect inventory, so I do my best and keep going. One way I can think about this is to remember that not all resentments, fears, and harms done others have the same impact on me. Some are huge, the size of boulders. Others are big, but not the biggest, more like stones. And then there are the many little ones, the pebbles. I want to make sure I get all of the boulders and most of the stones in my inventories. To ensure I keep going, I schedule a date and time with my sponsor for Step 5 while I am working Step 4. I take Step 5 by reading my 4th step inventories to my sponsor. Now it's your turn. Remember, it works if you work it because you're worth it.